Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar on future-proofing e-commerce, strategies for Canadian merchants amid US-Canada tariffs. I'm Mel Shi, CEO of Brain& Code. I specialize in UX strategy and helping e-commerce businesses create high-converting experiences.
Hello, and I'm Sergio Tadeo, CEO of Brain and Code, and I focus on Adobe Commerce development and technical solutions for e-commerce businesses.
All right, so why are we here today? So we know there's been a lot of uncertainty in the e-commerce space with the recent US-Canada tariff changes. So we wanted to come on and today and talk to you about those topics. So we're not here to discuss trade policies or economics. We'll leave that to the experts and to judge, and not to judge who's right, who's wrong. But our goal as an e-commerce agency is to help you adapt quickly and thrive despite these changes. We'll focus on practical strategies you could implement on your e-commerce store to minimize disruptions, optimize conversions, and unlock new opportunities. So, agenda we have today. So, what we'll cover are four topics. So, the first, we'll talk about expanding beyond the US market. And secondly, we'll talk about how to optimize your store for a Canada first strategy. And then wrap up with cross border shipping costs and also checkout and payment updates.
Yeah, that's right. And whether you are a Canadian merchant selling to the US or a business looking to diversify beyond the US, we'll cover features, updates, UX best practices, and backend configurations that can help. We'll also show how platforms like Adobe Commerce, also known as Magento, and Shopify can support your strategy. Okay, Mel, let's dive in.
Okay, great. So let's start with our first topic. Um, it's something a lot of merchants have been thinking about, which is market diversification, expanding beyond the US market. With these tariffs making US sales more expensive, many businesses are exploring these new markets. And so, Sergio, why don't we start by talking about the key e commerce considerations when merchants are considering to expand beyond the US?
Yeah, sure. So the biggest thing in this scenario is a multi-region support. So your store should be optimized for currency, taxes, shipping rates, and local preferences. Adobe Commerce and Shopify are great examples, and they allow merchants to do that. So offer multi-currency pricing with real-time exchange rates, set automated tax calculations per region, create localized content to improve trust and conversions. For example, if you're expanding to Europe, you need to ensure your store is VAT compliant. And if you're selling to Australia, they have strict product labeling and GST rules. Let me show you how that actually works in both platforms, Shopify and Adobe Commerce. I will start with the Shopify one, which I think could be easier. So the Shopify has two approaches, the multi-store and the Shopify markets. Both native, both comes with since the fresh starter one, so you don't need to pay more or go to Shopify Plus. You can go with the lowest and initial version of the Shopify. The When we talk about multi-store, think about you have this example here. You have one URL for your online store, and you want to sell for two different markets. So your primary market is Canada, so and Canadian company, and you want to sell to US. That's how we want to do. So basically, you can have and you can leverage from Shopify payments to have multi-currency. So someone in US can check out in US market, etc. But they're going to see the same website. There's nothing different from the primary and the second market in this scenario here, where you have one main Shopify store. But let's say you want to expand beyond the North America and you're now looking for different scenarios. In this case here, we have like Europe. So you're going to go to the European market. In this case, you're going to use what Shopify calls as markets. And the markets mean that now you can have a dedicated website tailor-made for that specific market or region you were going to. In this scenario here, as you can see, the mystore.com now have a different URL called EU mystore.com. which means that the secondary Shopify store is dedicated for that specific market. And Shopify goes even beyond because in this case, let's say you have mystore.com and eu.mystore.com for those different markets, but you have a second brand that you want to have a totally different UX, totally different design, not even similar to your existing ones for the Canadian, US, and European market. That's what Shopify allows you out of the box with the third brand or third Shopify store. In this case here, another brand.com. So these are really cool ways that you can start selling to different markets right away. And if you're using Shopify, I can tell you out of the box, no need to much technical details or knowledge to do it. Definitely, we can help you with that, but it's super straightforward the way you can handle this multi-currency scenarios. The only thing, and this is important to say, is you must be using Shopify payments, which means the Shopify official checkout and payment gateway, because then they allow you to use over 150 different currencies around the globe. So it's easier and it's practical to do. Because if you don't do that, if you're using your own payment gateway, which is also allowed in Shopify, that may require you to have further discussions or conversation with them to make sure that you can allow people to check out on their local currencies. This is for Shopify, and this is how it works. Super straightforward. Let me show you now how that applies into Magento and Adobe Commerce. Here, I'm going to show you two different scenarios. It's quite similar to Shopify, the way Shopify approached, but in Magento, we set them a little bit different. So we have here the Magento installation, and let's say your website has a base currency as Canadian dollars, but you want to expand the market. You want to test waters, but you're not sure what kind of market your products will be well received, or the ones that you're gonna get more conversions. And of course, we're looking for conversion at the end of the day. And let's say you decide to go with five different markets. So you said, "Oh, I want a website for the that is for England, one for in Italy, one for Mexico, one for Brazil, and one for China." That these are the markets that I'm gonna reach out first. This scenario that we have here, it's called store view. So basically, we're not going to change the way your customers pay because they're still going to pay using the base currency, Canadian dollars, but they will be able to see uh, using an automated conversion rate that happens and it's configured in the Magento admin. They're going to be able to see the local currency. So if they are in Brazil, for example, they're going to be able to see that price that you have on your store as Brazilian reais. But during the checkout, they will check out and the credit card will be charged as a Canadian dollar. And the same goes to all of them. The nice thing and what I like this here, this functionality of store view, is that you can also have on those store views dedicated content or translated content. So in this case, if you are selling to Italian market, you can have everything translated to Italian. If you're going to Mexico, you can have everything in Spanish, and here we and goes to all the same for all of them. And although it gives your customer the idea that they are seeing a local brand or a local website, they are actually just seeing a translation of your existing website, and the checkout will still be using your Canadian currency. The other option that you have, also out of the box within Magento, and just so you know, this approach here with the store view, it's pretty straightforward. If you need any help, we can support you with that. I would say in a couple of days, this will be live with this scenario that I'm just showing you here. Of course, will depend on translations, content, and this is more on your end, but technically speaking, it's something that it's out of the box and can be done in 1 or 2 days. The other option that I was mentioned is the multi-website. what is the main difference between the multi website and the store view? And this is important for you to know. Let's say you are planning to move for different markets. You're going to reach different markets now in different regions. You did the store view as a phase one approach, an MVP approach, and you notice that from the five markets that you started before, three of them are very strong for you. So European market, the Mexican market, and your Canadian local market. And now you want to start selling for those three markets on their local currency. In that scenario, the a best approach that exists is to have what Magento call multi-website approach. So we're going to have three websites, one for each of these regions. They are all managed through one Magento account, one Magento admin, and you can also use the same product data that you have assigned for your main store, the Canadian store, to be assigned to every single of the other stores websites you have. Doesn't You don't need to worry about, oh, but do I need to go one by one? Do I need to just no, it's you can do it in a CSV file. You can just mark all of them or some of them. It's pretty straightforward and easy to manage. This scenario here also allows you to have not only payment methods different, which will allow your customers to check out in euros and pesos or in Canadian dollar, but will also allow you to have local shipping agreements because they are, although they are under the same Magento installation, technically speaking, they are just like three independent websites. So think of them as three independent websites. This would be for a mature or a mature decision. I already tested the market, the five markets or 10 markets with store views. I noticed that some of them are responding quite well to my products and I'm having good conversion rates. I think it's worth the investment of creating almost like a dedicated region website. And the good thing about this is that by having those kind of approach, you're going to be able to not only offer to your clients a local experience, but they'll be more loyal to your brand because now they're going to see a URL that connects with them. For example, if you are in Canada, you're going to see a URL that ends with .ca mostly. And if you're in Brazil, you're going to see a URL that ends with .br. And that's good because now you kind of think, oh, this is a Brazilian company, or this is a company that cares with the Brazilian culture, and that's nice to see. So these are the two options that we have, and on a phased approach, since we are if you are just trying or testing waters, I would recommend to start with the store view, and then after that we go to the multi websites. This will definitely put you on the scene for a multi-region approach success.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I love how you broke it down into prioritization, right? So I know that in this situation that we find ourselves in today, you could react, panic, and then just make a rash decision. But then there are ways to test the waters, like test the markets, like you said, right? So I love how you are making this recommendation of a phased approach, which allows you to pivot and adapt to the circumstance appropriately, but also not rush into a big investment, right? And so, yeah, I love how you broke that down.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then Mel, for this, I would say there's not only this approach, but we also know that there are other customers that are looking for optimizing their store for a Canadian first strategy. And
yes.
then for those business that are doubling down on Canada, uh, you and this is your experience and then your area you're specialized on it. What are some of UX and conversion optimizations they should focus on?
Yeah, so that's a great topic related to jump onto. So, if for merchants who are doubling down on the Canadian market, and if your strategy is Canada first, then like similar to what you said, that if you were diversifying, you want people who in that region to feel like your business is dedicated to servicing you as either Canadian, Brazilian, Chinese, right? And it's just the same goes for I think if you're Canadian And you want in this situation to feel like, okay, this is a business that's Canada first. And I'm for that reason, I am going to make my purchase decision based on that, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about UX and front end improvement, so rather than going in and dedicating efforts into back end infrastructure, some like what you just described, right? If your store is already selling to Canada, we actually can accomplish a lot of changes to the front end with less effort because we're talking about design improvements and the template, front end template improvements, right? So, some examples, it makes me think of a few years ago in the pandemic times when there were a lot of e-commerce stores that started to promote shop locally, right?
Yeah.
I am a Vancouver-based company, I'm a Toronto-based company, or in the States as well. Hey, shop locally. And so they put up banners and there's social media marketing and maybe somewhere in the header or maybe in the checkout, they had those messages to encourage people to shop locally. So similar in that aspect, right? So here, like I think we could highlight Canadian merchants can highlight that made in Canada brand as trust signals on the website. So
Yes.
areas that would make sense to apply it would be like if you have a Canadian certification, right? You don't have to be literal too, right? It could be certification logos for your B2B company that you would incorporate in the footer. And so that's a very subtle way of showcasing that you're a Canadian brand, right? And you're certified in Canada, right? And so badges, right? Just I've seen sites where it's so subtle that it's just a maple leaf somewhere in the header, maybe next to the logo, right? And or a badge that says like this is a Canadian owned company. And that could, yeah, live in the header and the banner elsewhere, or design a whole new banner, right? And so you
Yeah.
might just focus on the homepage or key landing pages where you want to communicate that Canadian presence, and you design a made in Canada themed banner to display during these times, right? Or in the top header, wherever it is. And so, yeah, so those are some of the trust signals that I think visually the Canadian brands could actually incorporate. But talking a bit about other aspects like data and where we could incorporate that Canadian presence is in pricing. So product pricing, if if your site does not clearly list that it is selling in Canadian dollars, that's something you could consider, right? So on your listing pages or homepage where you have featured product lists or anywhere where you've got that product card and you have product pricing and also in the carts, then displaying that you are selling in Canadian dollars is going to help. Because when I am shopping at a site, sometimes like there are some sites that I know they're based in Canada, and they just show like dollar symbol and the price, and they don't really say like CAD or USD, well, no currency indicator in the price. And I have to wonder, like, oh, am I being charged in Canadian dollars or is this US dollars? And I go in the footer and I have to look, right? And so that's requiring a bit of effort on the part of the user. And so I think that, displaying the currency is important. And also, if you were defaulting to US dollars for whatever business reason, then also consider displaying the price in Canadian dollar by default because some sites have that toggle to change to multi-currency. So just really consider making sure that you are detecting where the user is from. And if they're Canadian, right, browsing the site from a Canadian address, then the IP address, then you want to display that Canadian price by default, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I can think of is in checkout. So when the users added things to the cart, they progress through checkouts and they're looking at the shipment page, then make sure you're offering Canada-friendly shipping and fulfillment options such as Canada Post. So, I mean, it's got Canada in its name. I know people are feeling very patriotic these days. And so, although maybe during other times you might not choose Canada Post because maybe they'll take 7 to 14 days to ship, whereas another American owned, I won't say which one, but American owned shipping carrier might be 2 to 3 days. But if you don't really need that item during these times, you may actually like the consumer might actually choose Canada Post, right? And then so offering them those shipping alternatives is going to go a long way.
Yeah, and those trust signals that you mentioned, they are huge on every single website. Uh, on our clients, we've seen a conversion rates increase by 20% just by emphasizing local production, faster shipping, and Canadian-friendly policies. So I think what you said, it's very relevant, and you pointed out well, like it's the same as we saw during the pandemic. It's like buy locally. And I think this idea of supporting Canadian business is crucial for our economy as well. So great.
Yes.
I like all you said, and I think they're pretty pretty relevant and also not difficult to
Yeah.
implement.
Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't say, actually, I almost wanted to say they're easy to implement. It's low effort compared to a lot of things. We're not restructuring your entire site, right? There are things that we could do on the front end.
Yes.
Okay, so enough about that topic. Let's move on to our third topic, which is shipping, because this is where a lot of merchants are feeling the pinch, whether it's now they're already feeling it or they know it's to come. And so they need strategies to prepare, right? And so, tariffs aside, I think cross-border shipping is expensive compared to local shipping. And so, Sergio, how can merchants minimize the costs?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? For shipping, because it is quite expensive to keep and shipping internationally, and not only for to US. If you think it, considering other markets and even over the Atlantic, if you're a BC owned company, if you're here in Vancouver, for example, it will be much more expensive for you to ship to Europe than a company in Toronto, for example. Based on that, there are a few things that I think can help customers in this scenarios. So the first one would be use regional third-party logistic providers to fulfill the orders closer to US customers or whatever in the globe you want to sell. These are important. So if you have the chance to have there are plenty of third-party logistic providers that can support you and help your business with that. The other one would be dynamic shipping rates. I know it sounds like, well, yeah, but that's kind of obvious. But people forget that using dynamic shipping rates in platforms like Adobe Commerce or even Shopify will allow you to pass real-time career rates to customers. And what that means is that they will always see the best available pricing, and you'll be saving on your end as well on this sense. And the last one is something that is popular, but nowadays I think it's even more important, and especially with the tariffs, is to offer, if possible, if it's tangible to your business, free shipping thresholds. And the reason for that is because sometimes, yes, there are going to be tariffs added to it, but sometimes because you're offering the free shipping, at the end of the day, the consumer will perceive that as a win and will encourage large orders. And by offering free shipping over a certain amount, to absorb the cost strategically. But doing that, your customers will definitely see the benefit of keeping doing business with you despite the tariffs.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point because also it gives that the consumer the perception that you as a business is you are absorbing the cost and it's not
Yes.
passed down to the consumer. So I think that's a very good point. And don't forget, if you are running shipping promotions, then test them. Sometimes a flat rate offer converts better than free shipping when it's at a high threshold, and sometimes the opposite, right? And so just make sure that when you're testing, implementing these strategies, make sure you test to see what's most effective.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so this brings us to our last topic, which is checkout and payment updates. Another big factor is optimizing checkouts, right? Especially when customers are dealing with different currencies, taxes, fees. You've done all the implementation up front, right? And so, why don't you share with us some must-have checkout improvements?
Sure, definitely. And this is an important part because a smooth checkout will reduce the cart abandonment. So here's what to focus when talking specifically about checkout improvements on a good UX. Show all costs upfront, including duties and taxes. Don't pretend that this is the final price if this is not the final price. You're just gonna have your customer to have to click through different areas and taking more effort and probably creating more abandonment cards than usual. Offer localized payment methods. Like we mentioned before, if you're using Shopify, you can use Shopify Pay to offer like local currency, which is great. But if you're using Magento or Adobe Commerce, talk to your payment gateway or check on PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Pay. Those will help and support to pay locally, and will definitely be a win for your customers. Implement guest checkout to reduce friction. This is important. The guest checkout, sometimes people say, well, but I want to know who that customer is, etc., etc. Trust me, if you sell a good product or service, and if customers like you, they are going to return and likely will create an account. Don't be too worried about having just one sell for that customer. And if even if that happened, you still have their email, because email is mandatory to create an account, and you could create like email marketing campaigns, try to engage them to create an account with you. So implementing guest checkout is one great thing. And last but not least is optimize for mobile first checkout. And nowadays, people are pretty much purchasing everything using their smartphones, and having a checkout that is not optimized for mobile first is going to be a problem for you.
Yes, those are all very good points. And I especially love that first point about showing costs up front. I've gone through a lot of shopping carts like that where cart abandonment can really skyrocket if customers aren't clear. They're not being told upfront about the fees, right? So if you're going to charge duties, then show them before checkout. So it's not a surprise. You never want a surprise when it comes to fees, right? Those are not the good type of surprises. And so those are all really good examples or recommendations as well, because I think that I know we started off by talking about what Canadian merchants can do in light of the US Canada tariff situation, but they are all just very practical, um, very good recommendations to optimize your checkout. So if those things that Sergio outlined have been on your back burner, well, maybe this is a good opportunity when you're investing in however it is you're pivoting or adapting to the situation. Maybe it's time to include these updates, right? And so, yeah, all very good. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot today. Whether you're considering to expand beyond the US, or you decide you're going to double down on Canada and Canadian purchases, small e-commerce optimizations can make a huge difference in conversion rates, customer trust, and overall revenue.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we know every business is different. So if you need custom solutions, whether it's multi-currency setup, UX improvements, or shipping automation, we can help. Just let us know, and more than happy to glad and be glad to help.
And so our contact information is up. You could also come to our website and fill out the form, and we'll get back to you. So if you'd like to chat with our team, schedule a free consultation. And yeah, we'd love to help you future-proof your e-commerce store, or implement some of these recommendations to help you adapt to the current situation. Thank you for joining us today. And until next time,
Bye bye.
bye.